What's going on, guys? Super Savage 799 here, bringing you guys a video. As they were doing Wolf Lee went with Lilly, episode 2. In the last episode, we covered the whole of season 1, starting from when Lee and Clementine left with Lilly. It led to Kenny killing Ben on the train, where he learned about how he got Kutcher and Duck killed. Kenny kept moving, but was cornered in the sewers and was unfortunately killed. Lee ended up meeting Christopher and Omid, and they all worked together to save Clementine, but unfortunately, it still led to Lee's death. In the coming months, the group of four would all continue moving. I think Lilly would be happy that there is going to be a new life in the world, since she is still humane. She'd be very protective of it though. She'd make sure to keep Krista, Omid and Clementine safe by acting just like a leader, just like she did back at the motel. While it's unlikely they'd end up at the same restrooms they did in canon, I'll say that they somehow managed to. Lilly would make sure that none of them are going off alone to avoid getting caught, and so they all have to go into the same restroom to clean up. The raider arrives, and without a weapon, she doesn't act as cocky. Lilly holds a gun up towards her and tells her to turn around and walk away, but she tries to get some pity. She begs for some supplies or some help, lying that her camp was raided. Lilly would remain aggressive as she makes sure the gun is loaded, telling the raider last chance. As Clementine's the player, she gets the option to do nothing, or ask Lilly to let the person stay with them. Either way, we arrive at a time skip. We'll say that in the time skip, Lilly would end up joining the Delta, alongside Krista, Omid, Clementine, and the newborn baby. We'll say he was a boy, and that he was called Omid Jr., or OJ for short. We pick back up with these guys later, as their story will be super vague for a bit, but we do have other guys we need to talk about. Over with the group at the lodge that Clementine would typically encounter, they'd have a rather eventful couple of days, since Clementine isn't there. That's until Pete and Nick go out hunting by the river. They're unfortunately jumped by walkers, leading to Pete dying and Nick running away into the woods, inside the hut he usually does. Without Clementine's help, the walkers all swarm in, and with no way to protect himself, Nick is swarmed and devoured by the walkers. Luke and Alvin head out to find them, leaving Rebecca, Carlos, and Sarah at home. Without Clementine there to tell them what's happened, they wouldn't run out to find Luke and Alvin. So when Carver arrives, he'd be able to see them through the window. He doesn't act polite, but instead gets a gun at the ready and bursts through the door. He hits Carlos with the butt of the gun, taking him to the ground in pain. Rebecca and Sarah both begin panicking as Carver tells them all not to move. If they do, he'll kill Carlos. So they both freeze up as Carver tells them he's been looking for them for quite some time. He pulls out a radio and radios into Troy, telling him that he's found them, telling him where they are. Troy, Tavia, Bonnie, and a couple others would all rush the lodge and would begin to load up the trio they have into the truck. Luke and Alvin both return and see what's happened, worrying them, as they realize they need to play this smart. While Alvin wants to rush in and save them, Luke wants to wait for the perfect opportunity to go and save them. As they get closer to get a better look, Alvin stands on a branch, breaking it, catching Carver's attention. He grabs Carlos as a hostage. He tells whoever is there to show themselves, or he'll start taking lives. Alvin tells Luke to go, as he himself stands up, saying it was him. Carver asks where Luke is, and Alvin says that he doesn't know, and Carver believes him before knocking Alvin out and placing him in the truck. He takes them all to the warehouse, where he beats Alvin so much he ends up bleeding out. He also kills Reggie for Sarah's incompetence. Luke would try and stage a rescue just like in canon, but that doesn't go well for him, and he's captured like the rest of them. The plan to get the radios occurs, and Luke tries to get them. He's caught, however, and he makes more noise and is much bigger than Clementine. Carver drags Luke into the yard and says that he'll make an example out of him. He grabs a gun and shoots Luke in the back of the head, killing him. Carver tells him that next time, they won't be so lucky, and he leaves. Without Clementine or Kenny, and with the moral lowered, there won't be an escape plan staged. It's unfortunate, but the remaining group is stuck there at house for the time being. In time, Rebecca would go into labour in much safer circumstances. I still think that Rebecca would unfortunately die though, not long after. The baby would be called Bill Jr., however, they wouldn't abbreviate it, because unfortunately, BJ doesn't sound like a very good name. So we'll go with the name Cleaver for the AJ this timeline. With Walter's group, they'd actually be pretty safe. Matthew won't be killed, which is quite nice. Sarita would never meet Kenny, though, since he was killed. It was a trade-off, but one that worked in their favour. Back with the Delta, Clementine would be trained up by many people there, like Abel. Krista and Omid would find a place weird, and would be doing their best to keep their baby safe from all the madmen. They wouldn't make their concerns audible for the time being, though, as they're trying to remain safe, and that would put that in jeopardy, and it might even get OJ killed. As we move along, we can also cover what happens to Harvey without Clementine. Since she isn't there to knock down the tree and make the truck fly off the road, Harvey won't be freed. He'd be knocked out after all his rambling and taken back to Richmond. In the cells, David would come down since he's the head of security and would see his brother. He immediately frees him and the two brothers begin talking about how they survived. Harvey tells David that Kate, Gabe, and Mariana are all trapped at a junkyard by David's people, and it makes him panic. David and Harvey rush to a vehicle and drive away as fast as possible to get back there. Once they arrive, they begin looking around and quickly stumble across the corpse of Mariana with a bullet wound in her head. David and Harvey both begin to cry, realizing she's dead, but that's not the worst of it. She has bite marks on her body, as if some walkers took a couple chunks out of her. They continue looking, where they hear the moans of walkers. David pulls out a gun and hands one to his brother as they prepare. I've heard about 20 walkers begin to approach, but the two at the front are the most troubling. Gabe and Kate are now both walkers. It horrifies David and Harvey as they weren't there to protect their family. You can either put them out of their misery or not, but either way, David and Harvey need to drive away. They return back to Richmond upset what's happened. I'm sure Harvey would see Max and realize that he's probably behind their deaths. He tells David like normal and he promises to follow up on it. They go meet Joan and Clint like Cannon where Harvey is kicked out and given a location as to where to go by David and Ava. Harvey makes it to the warehouse, but unfortunately, that's as far as he can make it. Without Tripp, Jesus, Clementine, and potentially Conrad to hold up the gate, Harvey won't have enough time to get the gate open and escape the herd of walkers. He begins fighting the walkers as best he can, but unfortunately, he doesn't make it too far. He'd be devoured and turned into a walker by the time David rocks up. He apologizes to Harvey and goes to leave, before hearing someone talking on the inside. He finds a way inside and sees Max, Lonnie, and Badger. He comes out pointing his gun towards them, demanding to know what's happened. They all pull out their guns until David has dropped his gun, and he is forced to. Badger then shoots David, despite what Lonnie and Max wanted. They call Badger an idiot, but he says that he would have just caused more problems for them in the long run. They make it back to Joan and tell her what happened. She demands they cover it up, and so they send some walkers in and make it look like David was bit and then committed suicide. With no more problems left, Joan keeps doing her corrupt things. Joan's group begins absorbing more and more places and ends up striking an alliance with numerous other factions that slowly get absorbed into Richmond. Back with Carver's group, they'd also begin growing, getting more manpower and become a much bigger unit. The people who hate being there are forced to do more and more things they hate during the time. It means that Jane, Sarah, and Carlos all live much longer though, and Mike and Bonnie are also there. Over with the Delta, Clementine would be trained up to become a killing machine. She'd be much more equipped in fighting and would be less hesitant to kill. She would still be compassionate though, as that's what Lee taught Clementine through and through. Omid would also be trained though. It isn't as efficient since Omid is a bit of an idiot. Christian and Omid would still have those feelings of unease, and they continue building under the surface. They don't want to raise a kid in a place like this, but at least it's safe from the outside world. Clementine would be a good big sister for OJ, and would basically make him AJ. She protects him and makes sure he's okay, and stuff like that, even if Christian and Omid are still there. In time, war would break out, Richmond attacking numerous parties, one of which includes the Delta. Naturally, they'd be losing ground, as would another settlement of similar size and strength. Lilly and Carver would make an arrangement to unite their forces and fight off Richmond. And that's when we leave it here. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment below subscribe in the next episode. What do you guys think of The Walking Dead what is so far? Please give me some feedback on how I can make it even better, and what do you think will happen in the final season. And so yeah, bye!